Welcome to Hidden World.
Early history and the precursors of football. The first known examples of a team game involving a ball, which was made out of a rock, occurred in old Mesoamerican cultures for over 3,000 years ago. An unique feature of the Mesoamerican ball game versions was a bouncing ball made of rubber. No other early culture had access to rubber. The first known ball game, which also involved kicking, took place in China in the 3rd and 2nd century BC under the name Cuju. Cuju was played with a round ball, stitched leather with fur or feathers inside, on an area of a square. A modified form of this game later spread to Japan and was by the name of Kimari, practiced under ceremonial forms. Perhaps even older, Cuju was Marn Guk, played by Aboriginal Australians, and according to white emigrants in the 1800s, a ball game primarily involving kicking. The game of football takes its form. The most admitted story tells that the game was developed in England in the 12th century. In this century, games that resembled football were played on meadows and roads in England. Besides from kicks, the game involved also punches of the ball with the fist. This early form of football was also much more rough and violent than the modern way of playing. An important feature of the forerunners to football was that the games involved plenty of people and took place over large areas in towns. An equivalent was played in Florence from the 16th century, where it was called calcio. The game was often played in schools, and two of the predominant schools were Rugby and Eton. At Rugby, the rules included the possibility to take up the ball with the hands, and the game we today know as rugby has its origin from here. The game in Rugby was called the running game, while the game in Eton was called the dribbling game. An attempt to create proper rules for the game was done at a meeting in Cambridge in 1848, but a final solution to all questions of rules was not achieved. Another important event in the history of football came about in 1863 in London, when the first football association was formed in England. It was decided that carrying the ball with the hands wasn't allowed. The meeting also resulted in a standardization of the size and weight of the ball. A consequence of the London meeting was that the game was divided into two codes: association football and rugby. The first football clubs. Football clubs have existed since the 15th century, but unorganized and without official status. It is therefore hard to decide which the first football club was. Some historians suggest that it was the Football Club, formed 1824 in Edinburgh. Early clubs were often formed by former school students, and the first of this kind was formed in Sheffield in 1855. The oldest among professional football clubs is the English club Notts County, that was formed in 1862 and still exists today. Football teams were established in the larger cities, and the new railroads could bring them to other cities. In the beginning, football was dominated by public school teams, but later, teams consisting by workers would make up the majority. Another change was successively taking place when some clubs became willing to pay the best players to join their team. This would be the start of a long period of transition, not without friction, in which the game would develop to a professional level. The motivation behind paying players was not only to win more matches. In the 1880s, the interest in the game has moved ahead to a level that tickets were sold to the matches. And finally, in 1885, professional football was legalized, and 3 years later the Football League was established. During the first season, 12 clubs joined the league, but soon more clubs became interested, and the competition would consequently expand into more divisions. The first competitions. Other milestones were now to follow. Football Association Challenge Cup, FA Cup, became the first important competition when it was run in 1871. The following year, a match between two national teams was played for the first time. The match that involved England and Scotland ended 0-0 and was followed by 4,000 people at Hamilton Crescent. The picture shows illustrations from this occasion. 12 years later, in 1883, the first international tournament took place and included 4 national teams: England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. Football was for a long time a British phenomenon, but it gradually spread to other European countries. The first game that took place outside Europe occurred in Argentina in 1867, but it was foreign British workers who were involved and not Argentinian citizens. The Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA, was founded in 1904, and a Foundation Act was signed by representatives from France, Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden and Switzerland. England and the other British countries did not join FIFA from the start. They had invented the game and saw no reason to subordinate to an association. Still, they joined in the following year, but would not partake in the World Cup until 1950. Domestic leagues occurred in many countries. The first was, as already mentioned, the English Football League, which was established in 1888. The leagues would by time expand by more divisions, which were based on team performance. In 1908 would football for the first time be included as an official sport in the Olympic Games. Until the first FIFA World Cup was played in 1930, the Olympic Games football tournament would rank as the most prestigious on a national level. Women's football was not added until 1996. Black players. As in many other sports, the white male was predominant for a long time. In football, black players started being present relatively early, and in comparison with, for example, tennis, football has traditionally been known as a sport with a mix of black and white players. In Britain, Andrew Watson is known to be the first black player, and he played in the Scottish club Queen's Park in the 1880s. A game of passion. Few other sports show examples of passion to that extent as football. The arenas are flocked by cheering people, and in front of television even more are watching carefully and sometimes with great enthusiasm. Already in the late 19th century, Goodison Park was built in England in purpose of hosting football games. In 1894, the FA Cup final between Notts County and Bolton Wanderers was attended by 37,000 people. A milestone in the development of football stadiums is the construction of Maracana Stadium. In the year of 1950, the imposing stadium in Rio de Janeiro was ready for almost 200,000 people. No other sport has seen stadiums of that capacity built to host its games. There have been two different traditions of fan culture on the arenas, the British and the South American. The British fans adopted the tradition of singing. The repertoire was inspired from pub and working songs among other areas. Fans in other countries have later adopted a mixture of these traditions. The name of the game, football or soccer. In most parts of the world, football is used as the name for the chess of the green pitch, the biggest sport in the world. In the United States and Canada, however, soccer is used instead as a distinction from American football. A more formal name sometimes used is association football, but in popular speech, it is either football or soccer. Thanks for watching.